just so you know, we're waiting for the camera crew to get their program together. Now we're ready. At this time, I'd call the regular meeting of the Wallingford Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission to order. The date is January 4th. The time is 7:05. Will you join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Nick Kern. Jim Vitale.
Deborah Phillips.
Jeffrey Necchio.
Jim Heilman.
Aaron O'Hare, Environmental Planner.
This will be the voting group tonight. Okay, going on to the minutes of the regular meeting of December 7th. Is there any comments regarding the minutes? Any corrections? And I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 be accepted as submitted.
Second?
Second.
Call for a vote. Nick?
Yes.
Deb?
Abstain.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Going on to item D, which is the public hearing that was scheduled for tonight regarding Choate School. They have requested that it be postponed till next month, and we're honoring that request. Just for it's not for the record, it's just for discussion, that I've been requested to recuse myself as well as Debbie, and to show good faith to the community, we're going to do that. But that'll be next month's meeting. Okay, going into old business, application A18 12.2, 32 Barnes Road, request for a bond release. What? No, they requested postpone for next week. They said all the information is not intact at the moment. That's their request. Bond release on application A18 12.2.
Okay, not ready.
Not ready. Okay, application A22 12.2, 1299 South Broad Street, Hutton Street 21 LLC, car wash facility. Wait a minute. Microphone, name for the record, et cetera, et cetera.
I am Chris Gagnon, professional engineer, BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden, Connecticut. I can do the video or I have paper plans. I know the video shines in your eyes. It's up to you guys.
I believe paper plans is okay for me. Commissioners?
Yeah, that's fine.
Paper plans is fine.
Okay, I'm fine with that as well.
Just please use the microphone when you're over there, though. Yes.
We good? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time to meet with us today. I'm here to present the proposed development on the property address is technically 577 South Broad Street in Meriden. It's also in Wallingford. As you can see, the city line runs right through the property. Right now it is an abandoned building, not in use. I think it was a banquet facility. And This proposed project is to demolish the entire building and construct a new car wash that will be entirely on the Meriden side. I'm going to say Meriden and Wallingford. I'm going to get it messed up a bunch of times tonight, so just bear with me. The proposed development is all situated on the Meriden side of the site, but we're here in front of you guys tonight because, as you can see, based on this existing conditions survey, that the existing building, driveway, and some landscape accessory areas that used to serve the banquet facility are on the Wallingford side of the development, and the plan is to demolish all of this and restore it to a vegetated area. So there will be no proposed impervious on the Wallingford side of the project. So that's the existing conditions there. So this is the demolition plan. So essentially, all of the existing developed portion of the property will be demolished. So the building's coming out, all the hardscape around it, and the existing pavement as well will all be demolished as a result of this proposed development. So that's what that shows. And it shows up better on this than on the survey, so I'll just reference it here. There are two wetland areas on the site. The larger site in your report, the larger wetland in your report, it's referred to as Wetland B, is all in Meriden, and this smaller wetland area is the Wallingford portion of the site. It should be noted that the general grades of the site are from the northeast to the southwest to the Wallingford wetland area. Being careful to make sure I get the towns right. It's a little confusing to me. So what we have here is now the proposed site plan. So this shows that the proposed car wash building itself, the vacuum area, and then the queuing for the car wash, along with a couple parking spaces, will all be located, again, just for reference, town line right here, will all be located on the Meriden side of the development. And what is proposed in the Wallingford side, as we saw in the demolition plan, is that this whole area will be revegetated and restored to a landscape area. So the impervious area in Wallingford the proposed impervious area in Wallingford is zero. So that's the site plan itself. And then, like many of our redevelopment projects that are in front of you folks, the existing site had very minimal stormwater management and zero stormwater quality. It was built before a time when that was important and required for regulations. So what we are proposing is a series of stormwater collection basins, which then direct, excuse me, the runoff to manholes and a series of rain gardens. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Site plan, come on, hands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rain gardens. So that will provide the runoff attenuation and volume attenuation and the water quality as well. And it should also be noted that we are proposing a hydrodynamic separator as well prior to the discharge of the stormwater runoff. So the building itself gets directed to Rain Garden 5. The parking areas get collected and directed to the various rain gardens, and then prior to discharge, there's a hydrodynamic separator which also then discharges off the site. And again, this helps to demonstrate the proposed work on the Wallingford side. Everything I was just talking about is occurring on the Meriden side of things. It's simply some fine grading after we remove all of the existing materials to just maintain a consistent grade and the sheet flow of the runoff off the property. So obviously there are multiple reasons why we're here in terms of the work and the proximity to the wetlands. As I mentioned on the site plan and I think on the demo plan, the predominant flow of water is from the northeast to the southwest. Therefore, during the construction process, the risk of stating the obvious, water flows downhill. So during the construction process, the proposed sediment trap is located on the southwest corner of the property and adjacent to both the wetlands and straddling the town line. As we've discussed in front of you before, this is a sediment trap sized to handle the drainage areas going to it, and we have the overflow skimmer so that as this is filling up with water, the cleaner runoff goes out through the skimmer and then is discharged during the construction process. This is a temporary trap and it goes away, so our limit of grading in a temporary state stretches down closer to the regulated area than the final proposed condition. So the proposed TOA slope is somewhere up here, whereas we just saw that the sediment trap is in this area. So that's essentially our closest disturbance to the upland review area. But as we said, we couldn't put it any further away because the water doesn't run in that direction. We propose I think part of Aaron's comments are going to be related to the landscape plan. This was the landscape plan that was submitted. As we know, this is in both towns as a result of our Meriden permitting process, which is slightly ahead of you guys just due to timing of meetings, we have updated the landscape plan, but that has not been formally submitted to you folks yet and will be, but it sounds like Aaron has a number of other comments for me. So the updated landscape plan provides some enhanced planting adjacent to the review areas that lines up with the demolition plan. So this is not a new area to be disturbed. It's an area being disturbed for the demolition work, and then to be restored with an enhanced upland review planting plan. So that is something that is new. So that's essentially the site plan itself and what we're proposing and why we're here in front of you folks. This was accepted at the December hearing.
Okay, I'll take over. Okay, commissioners, any comments regarding this? Any questions, any comments? Jimmy?
Not at this time.
Jeff?
No.
Deb?
No.
Nick?
The natural contour out there runs from north to south, or from the high side to the low side. What are you going to do? How are you going to change? You're going to raise the elevation on the Wallingford side? Because right now everything tends to go towards the Wallingford side. The way that the footprint that's there now, when it rains, it runs down and back behind the banquet hall, or it runs into the adjust lot, next spot down. So how are you going to raise that grade up? The front is level with Route 5, but the back tapers down towards the west, and then, well, southwest, west, and then towards the Wallingford side. How are you going to improve that when the topo right now is?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. So this drop of water right here flows, and unfortunately the survey is a different orientation than the plans, but I think you guys get it. This drop of water flows down this way. Any drops of water here flow down, hit the curb, and end up in the Wallingford wetland area. So our proposed stormwater management system and plan and analysis mimics the same drainage pattern. So I took a look at that today as I was preparing for this hearing. The existing conditions, it's about 9,700 square feet, or plus or minus 2 acres of the site drains towards, a little over 2 acres, drains towards this basin. In the proposed condition, it's at 99, plus or minus 9,900 square feet. So we, within a couple thousand square feet, are maintaining the amount of flow that is going in the same direction. So the existing and proposed drainage patterns are essentially the same. And to make it work, we are putting curbing in here, and then the curbing has a little leak off here, so this drop of water flows into this riprap curbing and into the rain garden. These drops of water get collected in the catch basin and hydrodynamic separator and out, and then the building, which is on the eastern side, which, if you recall from the survey, that ends up in the Meriden wetlands. So we've attempted to mimic the existing condition drainage patterns with our proposed grading and where we direct the roof and parking runoff. Is that what you were asking?
Well, my concern is My concern is the wetland area that you're gonna pump all this water into. Is it gonna be adequate to handle it? And second of all, is that wetland area belong to the property, or does it belong to the neighboring property? You
To
dumping
answer your
the
second question first, the wetland area belongs to multiple properties. So you see our property line cuts through and the wetlands continue. Same with the Meriden wetlands. They belong to multiple properties. And our stormwater analysis demonstrates that we have a reduction in runoff rate, so it's not going to get as fast there. But the volume analysis is within a couple tenths of an acre foot of runoff. So essentially the same volume is getting to the wetlands pre and post, but we just slow it down a little bit because of the rain gardens that we're proposing and because of the fact that this is going from impervious to vegetation, so that slows it down a little bit. But according to our stormwater analysis, essentially the same amount of area is going there and essentially the same amount of volume is going to the wetlands. So based on our analysis and my professional opinion, this wetland, the hydraulic budget for the wetlands is essentially same pre and post. So we're not increasing anything to it. We're reducing it slightly, but that's what we're required to do. And we're improving the quality by proposing the rain gardens and the hydrodynamic separators.
Well, when it rains, there's no place for the water to go but to the budding property owners. Are they aware of what you're going to do with the wetlands that's there now? Are they aware you're going to flood that wetlands with a good percentage of what you're doing there? You're slowing it down, but it's still going to get down there. Where's this water going to run?
The exact same place it runs today. So we're actually putting a little less water there after our project.
And did you do soil samples to see whether that soil was adequate to take drainage? My understanding is that's all red rock out there, shale rock. Shale rock doesn't absorb water. So you've got to design something that's going to hold the water plus slowly dissipate it into the soil. Did you take that into consideration? Because I don't see any backup here or any emergency what's going to happen when it doesn't work. There's no fail-safe.
So the rain gardens are an engineered system. So we have details in the plans showing that we don't just put them in the native soils. There's a cross-section of engineered material at the bottom of it, which allows for both filtration and infiltration. And then we have the under drains in them, which then allow them to drain so they don't become a nuisance. And then because of those features, it slows down the rate that it's leaving the site that it leaves today. So the rain garden, it slows it down. It allows water to be filtered through the soil medium and through the uptake from the vegetation. So these wetlands, again, with regulations, we're required to meet or reduce runoff rates and volumes. You can never hit it exactly. I mean, obviously the goal is to hit it exactly. But when we discharge off the site, it will be less water than is there today, and it will be cleaner water.
All right, my last question is, I understand you saying that none of the Meriden side water is going to come onto the Wallingford side. All the storm water is going to stay on the Meriden side. Yes?
No, that is not true. Today and when constructed, the Meriden water flows to this wetland area. So going back to the existing conditions, with the town line being here, the wetlands are right about here. So existing conditions, you can see this drop of water here flows off the back of the parking area and into Wallingford. So There will be water, today there's water going from Meriden to Wallingford, and when constructed, a similar volume and a reduced rate will be coming from Meriden to Wallingford.
No, not this time.
You've made some changes, and is there a reduction in impervious surface?
Yes, sir.
And how much is that?
That's in a different set of notes. Overall, it's a 40% reduction in impervious area, or equal to 20,400 square feet. So a hair under a half an acre reduction in impervious area on the site overall, with the majority of that being in Wallingford, because we're removing all the impervious in Wallingford and no impervious is coming back in Wallingford.
Aaron, any comments?
Yes, I have a lot of comments. Unfortunately, I haven't met with the team yet to go over my comments. I don't know how much time you want to spend on it tonight, Mr. Chairman, but I've got big picture and detailed comments. First off, Chris, do you know where it stands with Meriden approval?
Meriden ZBA was yesterday, was heard and tabled till next month. Meriden Wetlands is probably going on at this exact moment. They are in Meriden right now for the wetlands hearing.
First night.
Second night, I believe.
Second.
I think they presented in December when we were just accepted. I think, don't want to be presumptuous, I think it was the understanding that it's probably getting approved in Meriden.
And the reason I ask is that it's tied. This isn't, it's one of those funny applications where it's tied, it's one, but there is this town line that goes through it. Big picture, I did go out there late today. So I don't have photographs to show you, it was late. However, I was very surprised with what I saw out there and concerned. And I believe, Chris, you're just coming in for tonight. This isn't really your project, is that right? I don't want to ask you, I'll be asking tough questions, but I don't know how well versed you are in the ins and outs of all this stuff.
I am here presenting the project, so it is my project.
Okay.
Do I have all the answers? No. I may need to get back to you on some things,
Okay.
but
Big picture, first thing, to get things out of the way, the Aquifer Protection District, this is the entire parcel, Meriden and Wallingford, lies in the Wallingford Aquifer Protection District. Okay? So maybe you could tell us what that means. I learned tonight from your colleague. One thing it means, it's why I said, why are these rain gardens? 4 of them. There's 5. But 4 of them have an impermeable liner. Why would a rain garden have a liner? That's, I've never seen a rain garden with a liner. And the answer was because in a aquifer protection district, you're not allowed to have unpure water trickle down into below, infiltrate, and get in the aquifer. So this kind of ties in with some questions Nick had. It's a complicated project. It's only 2.5 acres, but there's a lot going on there. The 5th rain garden doesn't have a liner. because it's getting the roof flow from the new building. So it's theoretically clean water, so it doesn't need the liner. However, circling back to what Nick said is it's supposed to infiltrate. Is it going to infiltrate? Is it red rock under there? I'm upset that I don't have any soil types on these plans. Usually I get soil types right on the plans, detailed soils information.
That rain garden 5, which receives the roof runoff, is designed to infiltrate. That I can answer.
Is there any-
I can't answer the subterranean geotechnical question. That's a good question. I would have to get back to you on that.
Also, this is a disturbed site, as you mentioned. It's from back in the 50s or something like that. So there's a lot of disturbance on this site. I mean, it would never look like this today, obviously, but we have the opportunity to make an improvement. This is a highly degraded wetland system, highly, one of the worst I've seen since I've been here 18 years. And going out there tonight and seeing this was very upsetting. But the good news is we have an opportunity to do something about it. Now, at the moment, there's nothing proposed to do anything about it, but we have that opportunity, and so I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I hope that we can table this till next month so we can explore some things like that. Right now, the fill line, even though I don't have any information that this is fill soil, but it feels like that when I go out there, the fill line is pushed right up to the wetlands, and then you have this steep slope, fill ends, millings. By the way, I don't know why the survey said it's grass. It's not. It's all millings. I walked the whole thing at 4 o'clock today. It's all millings in the back. No grass, maybe the size of this table grass, but. And then it goes straight down into the wetlands, full of shopping carts and concrete blocks and garbage. And then the wetlands, which I don't know, your wetland scientist is not here tonight, yeah? Okay.
No, he is not.
Because I don't understand why they said in their wetland report there is no watercourse. For 2 reasons. One is tonight I saw a watercourse, a stream, that any lay person would call a stream. But number 2 is we were trained that if you have standing water, which they say in the report there's standing water, that is a swamp, or it is, and swamps fall under the category of watercourses in the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Act. It falls under the watercourses part. So a swamp with standing water, which your wetland scientist says is standing water, that'd be a watercourse under the Act. But there's a stream out there, okay, that flows from north to south. So it flows through the Meriden part into the Wallingford part. Then, just off-site, 30 feet off-site, it goes into a 36-inch culvert, which is not on the plan. And the surveyor probably left it off because it's 30 feet off your property line.
We're technically not allowed to go there.
Right, but this wetland commission would be interested in where this water is heading. It's of interest. But even more upsetting from what I just said was the color of the water. In the Wallingford, from the middle, okay, let's start at the north. The north side in Meriden, regular watercolor, you know, looks dark because it was late in the day and it's going through the wooded swamp, brushy area. But about midway down, it turns flaming orange-brown, opaque, like soup. I don't know what it was doing. Like I said, it was late in the day. I'm going to go back in the daytime, and I'm going to find out where it turns from looking regular to looking very alarming. I don't know what makes water that color. It does happen at the intersection where the sewer line goes across, but I'm just noticing that on the plan. I'm not implicating the sewer line. I don't know what would make water that color. But again, separate from that, in the southern part, you're proposing all this grass area, which is great. You know, it's not going to be paved, like you're saying. You're getting rid of 40% of the impervious area on the whole site. That's great. I'd like to see something other than grass. You know, it's not the best thing, but for whatever reason, the applicant wants grass. So there's an opportunity down there to, where it hits the wetland, to lay that fill line back. Right now it's like this, to lay it back, they call lay it back, toward the grass, lay it back, gentle that slope, and put in some wetland plantings there, where the site meets the wetland. You're doing work 8 feet from the wetland. Your proposed work is 8 feet from the wetland. Your silt fence is 8 feet from the wetland, the closest point, the Wallingford wetland. The removal of the old fence is like 10 feet from the wetland. And then in addition, you're discharging the water. The temporary sediment basin water is being discharged 32, it travels 35 feet, but it hits the wetland. I believe it's 35 feet. It needs some protection right now. It's just a pipe. It needs some erosion control at the end of that. This is discharging dirty construction flows. So it needs some control there. This is friable soil. I tried to walk on the slope. So it's going to need some protection. Then there's other engineering things we could go into, like that stormwater discharge. It's 115 feet. This is for the whole parking area. You're letting it out at a flared end 115 feet from the nearest wetland, the Wallingford wetland. It's 115 feet. So that's going to need to be protected, especially since you're putting grass seed in there. I mean, it's just wide open. And then it's supposed to travel and go down this, you know, it's just, it needs it. Anyway, there's a bunch of other little details. I don't know, I want to take so much time. I'd like to meet with the applicants, you know, try to straighten some of these things out. I would like soil types on the plan. There's, on your plans, there's 3 different drawings for the limit of disturbance line. They don't match up. Each sheet has a different line, which I guess things changed over time. So we just need to tighten things up a little bit and maybe explore. Well, I know I want to go look at that stream and see what's making it look like that. But if I could sit down with the applicant and explore some possibilities for a little bit of renovation back there of this poor wetland system. And I apologize for my voice. You know, I'm just getting over an illness, so.
Aaron, do we have any correspondence from the DOT?
No.
Because if you go up there when it's raining, the last rainstorm we had, the catch basin can't handle the stormwater that's coming down Broad Street into Wallingford. I've seen it bubble up out of the catch basin and go by it and head down the hill towards the tunnel. There's a water problem up there, and I think DEP should address if this is going to help or hurt, or what corrective actions need to happen out there, because I've seen the water 4 or 5 inches deep in the gutter line, rolling down that street, trying to find a place to discharge. And what usually ends up happening is where the mattress place is, it dissipates right there into the mattress place parking lot. So I would like to see some kind of correspondence from DOT saying that they're aware of this, because when there's a storm coming, I see the trucks up there cleaning the tops of the catch basins to make sure that they're open for the storm. So there's an issue there already. I don't know how much of this project he's doing is coming out into Broad Street. So I feel comfortable that they're probably aware, right? That you're going to do this, or you want to do this?
Since we're on the state road and changing the access points with the curb cuts, we need to obtain an encroachment permit from the state. And that process, being the state, it's not always the same process, but I'm going to say that process typically requires that we provide them data on the stormwater management system in the street.
So Chris,
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of issues here, and yes, it's holidays and all the craziness that goes on, there's a lot of unanswered questions. So I think at this time I'll entertain a motion to table this until next month. And then you can, Aaron, can get and straighten out the fine tune this application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on application A 22-12.2, 1299 South Broad Street, Hutton Street, 21 LLC, car wash facility be tabled until next month.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Nick?
Yes. Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Be happy to meet with Aaron in the very near future.
All right, going on to the next application, A 22-12.3, 1 North Main Street Extension, In Memoriam Cemetery.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Louis Orphis with Connecticut Consulting Engineers. To my right is John Gable, also with Connecticut Consulting Engineers, and the site contractor for 1 North Main Street Extension, Robbie Perrin. Apologies.
Could you restate his name, please?
Robbie Perrin.
How do you spell Perrin?
Just remember to use the microphone.
So the site that we are working on is 1 North Main Street Extension. It is in Memoriam Cemetery. It is comprised of about 33.3 acres. We had a soil scientist, Matt Davison, go out and walk the site, and he can confirm on December 4th, we received his letter that there are no wetlands located on the subject site. So we are proposing 16-foot driveway access points so that we can extend for grave plots. And we are also proposing a grass swale located on the easterly down gradient side of the site for runoff. And we had also, our CCE staff also worked with Erin O'Hare regarding comments that she had, and we had addressed them already as well before the commission tonight. I would like to ask the commission if they have any questions regarding the.
On the east side, how far away from a wetland are you?
We are actually a little more than 50 feet from the wetland buffer.
Is that 50 feet from the boundary line or from your activity?
50 feet from the boundary line.
Property line?
Yeah, in some areas, but we stay 50 feet past, more than 50 feet past the wetland review area.
But the wetland is close along that side.
Yes, more towards the easterly side, yes.
Nick, comments?
Are you coming for our blessings, or are you here to have us give you approval for what you've already done?
We haven't constructed anything yet. We are looking for approval for the grass swale and the proposal for the 16-foot driveway access points.
Well, I must have, I stopped to see my mother at Christmas Day. She's on the lower side of the cemetery, and I went by down through there. There's all millings on the road. The road's been cut. There's a dozer down in there. You've done some grade work. So I'm just wondering, you're coming here with this tonight, and you've already done the work.
There was construction that was done, but has ceased prior to tonight's meeting. I believe Robbie is
Yeah,
more
may I
versed.
try to help with that answer. So it was, planning and zoning approved it. It's been probably a 1.5 year project.
Did you give your name already?
Say again?
Did you give your name already, please?
Robbie Perrin,
Robbie Parent, okay.
the site contractor.
Thank you.
So we had got approvals, planning and zoning. The committee submitted the paperwork and,
And they gave you permission to do what you've done.
yeah, so we started that. So as you see on that left side, just cut basically a track pad into the property, and then received a letter from neighbors, and then it started the wetlands process. So we stopped. So the work that you saw, the cut there, that's been dormant for,
Everything he just spoke about is already done out there. If you go out there, you can see the millings are down, the road has been wrapped around, heading down towards the hump of the road there where they used to dump their leaves, the gravel piles there. All that work, is that your dozer sitting down in it?
it is, the gravel pile has been there. That's the spoils piling from when you dig graves. That's where the spoils go,
So that knoll is a spoils pile?
in the back. So if you creep over that down the back, that's the pile that I've used for 10 years to take the, as you dig a grave, you take a load out and a load goes back in.
I'm good.
Debbie?
Nothing.
Jeff?
No questions.
Jimmy?
The work in the swales has been readjusted.
Yes, that is correct. We had worked with Allison in engineering actually this morning, and I have a memo that she had given to Aaron today regarding that, our new swale adjustments.
The high knoll that you have there,
On the northeast side?
no, not all the way, right there where the road goes around, right there.
Yes.
And you notice how there's a depression in the top of that knoll? You've probably noticed it, Robin. It was a gravel bank. I think that's a pure gravel knoll. Back in maybe 100 years ago, they hauled gravel out of there. Aaron, comments?
Okay, so I hope y'all received my comment letter. Can you acknowledge that you did? It was pretty crazy yesterday getting it all out. I don't have secretarial help right now. So it'd be dated December 20th. It's a 2-page letter. I don't know if, anyway, it goes into quite some detail. I went out there, I went to the site, and everything that I found out there, I got it to the team on December 20th, and they were very quick to respond and came back. So what you have is the revised plan. And tonight there's a little tweak after they worked with the town engineer, which if you see fit to approve this tonight, we'll add that as a condition of approval. So to make sure that they incorporate what the town engineer has suggested in that memo I handed out tonight. And basically they've addressed everything. I just want to run over some things. This came to our attention, Nick, when you said the work was already done. Yes, a portion of the work was already done. Approximately 200 feet of roadway was done, like you said, what you saw. And then a neighbor came and said into my office and said, "What is going on? I've got wetlands. They're up there with a bulldozer." I said, "What?" So then then they stopped. We called them. They stopped the work because they didn't realize that they have no wetlands. It's the wetlands off-site. It's the adjoining property at 592 North Elm Street. She's got the wetlands. So that she blew the whistle on this because they didn't have any wetlands, so they weren't worried about it. So then once they understood the situation, they stopped. And then they came in, and then we fiddled with the design, and the town engineer worked with them on how to design a rain garden to accept the runoff on the low side of these proposed drives that they're talking about. So that neighbor, and I know I've sent these pictures out. I don't know if I'm sorry, I've sent it to different people. I don't know if I sent it to you, but I took photographs of at 592 North Elm, and the wellhead can be seen clearly in the picture. I can pass it around if you'd like. She's concerned about her well, what they're doing up there. She's concerned about any rock salt that they're going to use on the roads, getting down into her well, or interfering with her septic system. So it was sent to the health department. So in the packet I sent out the response, I referred the whole application to the health department. So you got your packet comments back from the director of health, and she went over everything. She's not concerned because they're far enough away, so they can't get any closer. You're supposed to keep a 75-foot clear distance around a well for the purity of that well. So now they're about 90 feet or something. Maybe John can confirm that. So they're far enough away from the well. As far as the septic system, the health department couldn't find the location of their septic system exactly, but we know where it was supposed to be, and it's pretty close to the property line. But again, they're far enough away, per the recommendations of the health director, that we're not concerned, just as long as in the future they don't get any closer down that hill. As far as the rock salt, the neighbor was very concerned about it affecting the quality of her water, so she went ahead and got a baseline study done on her well. So she has that in her pocket. And the health director said that the well is far enough away that the rock salt will not. That's what that 75-foot distance is around all private wells. That's enough soil to treat whatever's coming there, coming towards there. They feel the soil attenuates whatever's coming toward the well. So in this case, it would be the rock salt. So at least the health director is not concerned about that aspect of it. I noticed in the responses they did map, maybe John, you can help me here. You did map the existing stockpile in the back?
Yes, that's correct.
Not the future one, but the existing one.
Yeah, they're way in the back.
What sheet is that on?
Look at the second sheet, Louis.
Is on the overall site plan as well as site sheet 2 as well, if you wanted to take a look. It is located on the northeastern side of the property. There's already existing soil stockpile. It's mostly brush, leaves, wood. It's just a mix of things.
Okay, my particular concern was that your wetland scientist, they had a wetland scientist report handed in that you received in a previous packet, indicated that the Payton's Brook is right off site. So that was my interest, that stockpile activity in the back, where you have a lot of old logs, stockpiling logs and leaves and gravel and such, that doesn't get too close to the Payton's Brook, which is not on your property, but it's just off your property. So now we have that mapped.
Aaron, who's going to be in charge of S&E control out there? They're far enough right now, but if this stockpiling continues, we get a bad rainstorm, some of that peanut gravel is going to wash down into the town of Wallingford community pool area, which is off the back slope. That whole cemetery is sloped and sloped, but where they've already started to disturb, and they're going to disturb, what's going to prevent that stuff from going down into the town property, which is a community pool, the backside of community pool? Is there going to be any S&E control out there? Who's in charge of S&E control?
I don't know if the team wants to answer that. It's very rugged back there, very rugged. And so Nick's concerned that it'll leak, over time, sediment, leak it down off-site into the Payton's Brook and into the community pool parcel.
We would be happy to do it as long as our client approves us for that work. We could do inspections during any rain event, greater half-inch of rain is typical, and do a report that to Aaron.
If you've been out there, it's swampy. Your property may not be swampy, but unfortunately, Mr. Vitale and I have done haying out there, and we've hayed all that area. And it drops fast, and it runs into the town property. And I'm not opposed to the disturbance if the rest of the neighbors are protected. You just can't go in and do what you want to do and then come to us and say, can we do this?
Yeah, I believe the work that we're doing here, they're just small private driveways, but we can delineate where the silt fencing is gonna go based on the, plans. We can actually stake that in the field for the contractor. And then during construction, we can, do site inspections at every rain event or every week, whichever comes first. During construction, we identify if there's any blowouts or any problems with the control measures during construction.
So is it your intentions to take that knoll out, take the knoll completely out?
Oh, I don't think, no.
No, it's gonna stay pretty much the existing.
Because there's
just-
already 2 or 3 plaques to the east that are already buried there.
Oh, you have to answer, I don't know, but the plot layout.
Yeah, that contour will pretty much stay the same. It's when you're digging graves, you can't make it any steeper or shallow. So they have a plot layout for basically more revenue in that whole area. That's why the need for the road is to open up that for other folks, so that those plaques that are there have been there for 5 or 6 years. So that contour will pretty much stay undisturbed. The road
What's your
circles
plan of excavation there? How much product you've taken off site?
We're gonna reuse, so it's just strip the topsoil, and then I put in 6 inches of 3-inch minus some geofabric underneath it, and then 4 or 5 inches of millings compacted. It's a little wider than the existing road, so it's just a road around back in for that design. There's a couple phases there too, and it's just the first phase. So this permit and this process is to get the whole thing permitted, but I wouldn't see that maybe not happening in my lifetime, the other phases.
Phase 1 is down there where all the leaves and trees, brush
Yeah,
and stuff is.
that's where I did the existing cut in the back. It's just basically a loop comes back in. So the 2 or 3 families that have those easterly facing plots, now they could at least get to it and use the water.
I think you got a lot of spoils there out of the grave site's been filled in that area. I don't think that's original equipment where you're gonna put the road, the loop. What do you think, Nick? The way the rock was coming to the top and everything?
The road's already there, the
I
gravel's.
mean, when we were,
Oh, yeah. No, we were working out there. It was all overgrown.
Yeah, that spoil pile's been there since, I've been probably 8 years in there after Hazelwood, getting to know the site and doing all the graves. And it's about a net 2 yard goes back, so that pile gets bigger and bigger every grave by about 2 yards. So it's,
None of that can be used for road base.
yeah, I have. I've used some. I've reused some. So really nothing's going off site, just bringing in 3-inch minus, big gravel in the bottom. And
My main concern right now is the runoff. We have a rainstorm. I don't want to see community pool get any more discolored than it already is.
yeah, it is quite steep in the back there, and it is a lot of peat from the probably 40 years of pushing leaves over that bank. There's 4 or 5 feet of good topsoil in there too. But
If I could suggest that could be a condition of approval, that the property manager continue to monitor the north side, where Nick is concerned.
Well, the property manager is never there. This gentleman is from the engineer department. He's designing and engineer the print.
Well, no,
Somebody should be responsible here.
I thought, Robbie, are you the property manager?
I'm a subcontractor, so they sub me the grave work, and I've known about this for a couple of years, and we bid it. I got the project, so I'm not on the board, but they asked me for help with equipment around there, and I'm not the property manager, no.
Well, we could still put it as a condition that the owner, the property owner, continues to monitor the northern area where all the the traditional stockpiling is located. Just a suggestion.
Well, who you corresponding with?
Oh, no, in the approval. If you're going to go ahead and approve this tonight, could be a condition of approval.
you brought up some interesting things. To the west of that loop, that right by the dotted line, What is that dotted line? That's not a property line.
That's a phase line.
This is for the phases. So this is just the extent of phase.
Well, about where that dotted line is an original road called Tankwood Road, ran down through there. Right down through the cemetery, right at the top of the community pool and up. But in that Tankwood Road swale, you can almost see the original tree line. All the leaves and unbelievable amount of stuff is over the last 50, 60 years in there. But you're talking about the leaves being pushed over the bank, and I'm not so sure that bank was ever really that defined. But what are you going to do? What are they going to do with the leaves going forward? Are they going to continue pushing them over the bank? Are they continually pushing them towards the wetland? Because that bank, how far away is that brook from that bank? Fairly close, isn't it?
I am actually unaware how close the brook is to the property.
Can't you tell on your topography?
Not necessarily. We show
No,
the
it's
contours.
off-site. It's off-site.
Yeah,
It's off-site, yes, but still close. And I don't believe that's Patton's Brook that is right there. I'd have to refresh my memory, but it might, either that or it's a swale coming in along the other side of your eastern boundary. And your swale and eastern boundary, is there an outlet to your swale? So it's a retention swale.
It's all, yeah, it's stone storage under the swale. We talked to the town engineer about that.
So your swale doesn't go the whole length of the property, just up in
No,
that
just
first,
the driveways.
that phase.
Just the driveways.
Well, what's their intention of all their debris over the next course of events? All their leaves, all their stuff, where are they gonna push it to? What are they gonna do with it?
I do know that the leaves are mulched, and they go to the right side, more to the easterly side of the bottom of that property. So if you guys mowed this field at the bottom there, there's a giant, I think it's a sycamore tree. Right there is where they take their mulch.
What do they do with it afterwards?
They dump it there, and it settles and turns into topsoil, and the stuff that gets pushed over the bank or is over that bank there.
Nothing is pushed over the bank? Is that what you said?
No, that's where like the,
That's what they're doing, they're pushing it over the bank.
yeah, so the groundspeople will not push it, but they'll dump their,
Are you digging the graves for them?
I do.
And the spoils that come out of the graves, where does that go?
That goes to the pile, call it south of there, farther up the hill. So if you look over that knoll, that's an existing spoils pile.
That's not getting pushed over the bank?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at one of my comments that pertains to this, number 13. It says, Paynes Brook is located off-site but within 50 feet of this property. That's what their wetland scientists said. I'd
The
forgotten that.
wetlands are within 50 feet of their property line.
Well, Payton's Brook, the wetland scientist called it Payton's Brook. And he says Payton Brook is located to the north, off-site within 50 feet of this site. So it's right there, as Nick says. I mean, it's real close, and that's why I wanted them to put it on the map, because they gotta watch that, you know? And I was gonna go down there and see how close it is, but it's so rugged, and with holes, you know, there's a lot of, what do they call that when all of a sudden there's a hole? There's a word for that. When you're standing on something and it gives way under you, there's a word for that. But so I didn't go down there, but, so this discussion is bringing it to the attention of the owners. They gotta be cautious about that. They gotta make sure nothing's getting down off-site. Nothing's leaving their property. I did send a copy to Plan and Zoning. They might wanna do, it might trip the wire on their fill requirement. So they were sent a copy of that.
Who's in charge of S&E?
I'm sorry?
Said, who's in charge of S&E, soil and erosion control?
Planning and zoning,
Planning and
in
zoning?
general. Yeah.
Have they been notified that this project is commenced?
Yes, in fact, thank you. I want to circle back. Robbie said that it went to planning and zoning. John, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it in front of them?
It will
Pending?
be after this.
I'm sorry?
It will be after, my understanding is, we have to go back to zoning after wetlands.
Right, because the ZBA,
We have ZBA approval.
ZBA approved something, I don't know.
for the use.
They approved the dog and cat cemetery, correct?
That's what.
That piece and the, you know, the road project with the existing plans, and that's,
All right. Is this ready to be approved tonight, Aaron, or is there too many loose ends?
No, I think with those two conditions that
The two conditions being,
that they pay attention to the phrase it somehow, the erosion control. Wait,
well, do they need to install S&E fence or silt fence?
how about this? Install S&E protection as needed to avoid sedimentation to Payton's Brook located 50 feet off-site, or something like that.
Well, who's going to determine as needed? You?
Well, I think maybe planning and zoning will have to go out there to see if it trips the wire on their fill deposition.
But they're in here for a wetland permit. Why aren't we requiring where a silt fence is?
We could just do it, just require it. It's very rugged. I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, John, you can, or whoever surveyed it, which one are you? You know, it's like this. You're uphill down on top of a log, and then you're falling in and so on. How do you get it under control? I don't know.
They're going to put a gravesite on every square inch they can get on this property. I would think they would get rid of the logs, move the logs. There was one on the top of the hill, which you got rid of probably when you started to cut that roadway through. I mean, you're going to fight over log, or do we want them to have silt fence on the side, on this northern, close to Patton's Brook? Should that be done?
I don't know, because it does restrict wildlife. I don't want to see all the box turtles in the world restricted where they like that corridor. There's a lot of box turtles in that corridor and other wildlife. It would, it'd be a piece of plastic up there forever. Maybe it's not necessary. I think I should go look at it, or somebody should go look at it. Maybe if I approach it from the other side, Payton's Brook side.
Aaron, we could just do state hay bales, that's something we could, or the
There
core
you
locks,
go.
or the core locks, that's something that's,
No, the said fence lasts forever. The box turtles will find their way under it or around it.
okay.
Once you contaminate with dirty water in the Payton Brook, I believe the town's still using some of the water out of Payton Brook to put in community pool. But we don't ever approve of an application unless the S&E controls are in place. That's number one on the application. Now she's going around circles about big logs and just, Ronnie, you're in the industry, you know what needs to be done.
yeah, I mean, frankly, I think it looks like hell down there, and I said at one time, maybe we should get some dumpsters and put all this crap in dumpsters and get it out of there. And because I'm the stable one there, I've been there for 10 years after Hazelwood, and I've seen all their help come and go, and sometimes I have to herd them around and don't dump there, let's clean this up. So I've improved the road in the back because it gets so muddy to get in there in the wintertime. I end up getting stuck, so I've made my own improvements, cut my own swales to slow the water down because it's a mess back there.
Well, then you know whether or not the S&E fence should be put up.
I think it should, I would like to see it, just put some silt fence up in front of that where you would potentially push it over the bank because it's wet in there, and just say, don't touch it, we can't use that anymore. And then, I mean, I would like to see, there's 30 years of big tulip trees in there that are just rotten. And, that's where some of the topsoil that I want to reuse, I try to organize some of it back there to dry it out. I asked one time, can we get some dumpsters? I'll load them up, just get the crap out of here. But
Nick, what we can do is, make that condition, we'll work with the soil scientist in here, and we'll go over some kind of S&E control measures in the back there.
That's fine. Who is going to be responsible for it?
For the maintenance?
Oh, make sure that's in place.
Hopefully our client hires us to do the maintenance or inspections for that.
So this approval is going to be on the approval will be on the applicant is going to tell us, or is going to provide the said fence and the erosion control.
And inspection, and somebody to inspect it.
That'll be one of the stipulations then. The approval won't be approved until he or she at the cemetery sees that this has to be done. Right? You think that'll
We'll
work?
have
or
to
that's-
get something from them in the statement.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the one putting it in and we'll set it up
Okay,
and then.
we got the silt fences requirement. All right, what was your other condition, Aaron?
Quick question for John. John, in the response letter, you said that, that the stormwater maintenance management plan was handed in. Where is it? Or is it on the plan, or where is it sitting, right?
I don't know. What did it say? I'm sorry.
I asked for one, you know, for the, these ribbon rain garden swale that you're putting in to maintain it, and I don't know. It says that was
I'll have
done.
to look at, maybe it was dropped off. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
All right, so we can make that, that's another condition of approval, that a stormwater management maintenance plan to maintain the long swale, linear swale is submitted.
I'm sure it'll be grass and mowed with the rest of the cemetery.
Well,
Anything else?
hope it doesn't clog up, you know. No, that was it.
I don't think you're gonna get enough water in the swale. It'll collect, and 'cause the only water runoff is really gonna come out of the roadway. You're not gonna get much elsewhere. All right, commissioners, any other questions? Jim?
No?
Jeff?
No.
Debbie?
No.
Nick? Carolyn? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion regarding significant activity.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that application A22-12.3, 1 North Main Street Extension, In Memoriam Cemetery Association, construction of interior drives be deemed not a significant impact activity.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second made, any discussion?
Are we pacifying the complaint? My only question is, the gentleman that turned it in, are we pacifying what his complaint was? The neighbor?
Oh, the neighbor.
Yeah. Is all of his concerns being addressed?
Well, it was her, but yes, I don't know if they're in the audience tonight, maybe not, but yes, she was concerned about rock salt. The director of health says, no, it's long, enough distance not to worry about the rock salt. And we had them, I asked them to stake the property line, because everybody was unclear how, you know, where, am I standing on her property? Am I standing on their property? So now they know where the property line is, because they need that silt fence to be 50 feet back, and so on. So yes, things are good. Now, I'm sure she'll be watching, you know, she'll be watching for any missteps, but
Okay.
Okay, call for vote. Nick?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes,
Jeff?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
Yes.
so we only have 2 conditions of approval then?
Okay, now we'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that application A22-12.3, 1 North Main Street Extension, In Memoriam Cemetery Association, the construction of interior drives, be approved as submitted with 2 conditions of approval. One, that the install S&E protections as needed to protect Payden's Brook, and 2, a stormwater maintenance plan to maintain the linear swale is submitted.
and 3, if I could add, Mr. Chairman, to amend the motion, 3, that the plan be revised to reflect the town engineer's comments dated January 4th.
And 3, the plan be
Revised
revised to reflect the changes that the engineer made
on her,
on
January
her,
4th.
on her letter of January 4th.
Okay, motion made. Second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Jimmy?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes,
Nick?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. Application A22-12.4 Northrop Road, Mark Development. This is a modification to the permit. It was changing a retaining wall to a riprap slope. Aaron and I went over it, and it was granted administration approval. Okay. All right. We got receipt of new applications. I think we'll hold that for the moment. I think we'll think we'll go into violations. And I think the primary violation at this time is,
The number 4 you're not going into? No one's
What's that?
here? Mr. Chairman, is anyone there for what you just announced, number 4?
we went through number 4, it was granted. Administration approval,
Noted that it was granted. Okay, please proceed, I'm sorry.
okay?
Yep.
So,
Oh, number 4, okay, yeah.
you all right over there?
Yeah, it was granted December 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
December 12th. Okay. Now we're on violations. Number 3 and number 4, number 5, I think, all, number 6.
Yep.
All the whole package of violations. This is 67 Schoolhouse Road, 69 Schoolhouse Road. So come on up and join us. Reporter. I don't know if we got any extra chairs, unless somebody wants to sit over the mayor's department.
You can sit over.
There's one
Did
chair.
do you all
Another
have
chair.
the packets, and the hard copies? Or are you
They were
supposed to?
submitted
We have
last
some
week.
more. We have some more. I know they were submitted last week.
Yeah. I don't think we got those in the packets
I
yesterday.
just got the one packet. This packet, I just got one. Did you submit 8?
No, last week you told us to just bring one copy,
Yeah,
or the month before.
Yeah, she was-
You said you could make copies for us.
No, they got, yeah, no, I understand what you mean. They got that before, yes, yes. For last month, they got that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, you're cool.
There's a lot to work with.
It's the same.
I annotated that for the. Place this.
You don't want this one? It's the same thing, you just pass it.
The second page is different.
Supposedly that replaces this. Christmas.
I had 69, but I didn't.
What's this? What is it?
What is this? This is on your property? Yeah. You hint. Comments?
It hasn't started.
Like nothing.
Oh,
So,
the cemetery?
Yeah, they were so hard to hear, it was pathetic.
Mr. Chairman, before you start, I just want to clarify, you got, at last month's packet, you got these, last month, for the December 7th meeting. Okay, now tonight they're handing out a much more voluminous report for all of you. Okay, but this is what went out last time, 2 separate pieces of paper, okay? Okay.
there have been some corrections.
Stop. Name for the record.
For the record, this is Sigrun Gadwa from Cary Ecological Services. I'm the wetland scientist and soil scientist representing Matt Lewis and.
Pull the microphone towards you, it's not
And
being
Mike
recorded.
Duras.
microphone closer.
And, okay, so we have been asked to make very clear exactly what has happened and give you spatially the information, and that's been, and also to calculate the areas, the fill volumes of the piles, and the areas of the clear cutting as well. That's all detailed section by section in the report. These gentlemen worked with me. They were very helpful. They put tapes on the property lines. All the pins were there. We were able to accurately measure distances to the piles, to each of the trenches, to the fill boundaries, and really make a very accurate map. And we know we have the dimensions of the lot, 105 feet for the rear property line. So that was what we based the scale on. And I mean, it was low tech, but accurate. And in the time since the meeting that didn't happen in the beginning of December, we did make a few corrections to the maps, or additional annotations. We added a stump pile in lot number 69. There's a pale tan symbol for wood piles, as you'll see if you look at the maps. You should put the two maps in front of you, 69 and lot 69 and 67. I also annotated the rear of lot 67, the lower part of it. It's distance from 20 to 23 feet to the fill line. Actually was not, there was no fill placed on that. It's still original soils, original microtopography, and original herb stratum and shrubs and understory. There were a group of dead ash trees there, 9 ash trees that were cut down, and I guess a couple of living trees were cut down. There's still a couple of living trees in that area. We did not include that in the clear cut area total. So that was the fact that the soil, the wetland soils and understory weren't disturbed. That was annotated. It's annotated on the more recent map, and also the wetland. There's some corrections to the wetland boundary. I delineated the wetlands. I'm a soil scientist, both separately. I delineated the natural wetlands on Mr. Lewis's property on the lot 69, because the line goes through the separation between the poorly drained soils and the moderately drained forested soils, passes through across the corner of his property. So we needed to know where that line was, to know where the upland review area ended, and to know how much cutting happened in the upland review area versus outside the upland review area. So that boundary is shown, I also worked on the boundary beneath Mike's house, just below Mike's house. Look, and we found that it's actually somewhat further down slope than it was in 1978. The base map that was provided to us by Aaron had the map, the delineation that was done then. There was fill placed at that time. When I did the soil cores, there was like 17 inches of sandy fill, completely different soil type, and then you got to the Wilbraham silt loam with models below that. So, about 30 feet on the east side of lot 67 has wetlands that were filled during construction of his lot way back when, long before he owned the property. And they also appeared to be hydrologically impacted by the house. Obviously, the house will be blocking groundwater seepage that's moving down slope in a westerly direction, and the models in the glade, you know, clearly wetland soils were baked dry and hard. They were not getting, they were basically relic models. They weren't getting the hydrology that they should. So that's something to take into account when you're thinking about the upper, about the upper 40 or 50 feet of the filling that took place on Mike's lot. Also, there was a fairly substantial lawn already there, and that's clearly shown in the aerial photograph, which we think was done early in 2020, and that was in your packet. So there wasn't wetland vegetation. It had been graded. It was jurisdictional wetland in that there was there were old wetland soils within 20 inches of the surface, but far less valuable than the forested wetlands below that. And then the trenches were used to, well, I had originally hoped I'd be able to really see the soil profiles in the trenches, you know, what was moderately drained, what was Wilbraham, what was Menlo, you know, what the characteristics, but there had been grading done before the sill was placed. The hummocks were filled, the mounds were were shaved down, so it was basically mixed together, and I couldn't see the soil profiles, but you could see at what depth the seepage was coming into the trenches, and you could also, it was an interesting thing, I went out there just before Christmas in the really cold spell, and most of the trenches had a good thick layer of ice on the top of them, but in the southwestern corner, there was no ice at all, and all the trenches had the water at basically the same level, within an inch or two of the fill of the natural soil surface. So that area has active natural seepage in it still, and that's that corner there. That's got real potential for restoration because it has, you know, natural hydrology and seepage. And then we also noticed that there was a lot of peat, dark organic soils in the spoils from digging the trenches in the lower northwestern corner. You know, they must have been some very poorly drained soils with really black, deep soils. So that's some good soil in that area, and the fill depth was mostly about 9 or 10 inches. It wasn't that deep. I know, but there's a 50-foot section of what had been forested wetland where we could tell from the depth of the seepage coming into the trenches that it was, you know, the seasonally saturated type of forested wetland, which the layperson mistakes for upland because it's got good solid ground and trees and no obvious water, no marsh plants or anything like that. You know, and those areas, you know, could certainly be restored to be, continue to be wetlands, but they could be usable because you can walk on them. There could be wet meadow areas with good wide trails that they could walk on and be, you know, walk through, meander through, and attractive plantings, shade trees, whatever. But it's up to you to decide how much fill is taken out, what fill is whether fill is taken out, and you know, what kind of measures you want. In the lot, there was much less activity. There was a good deal of tree cutting in lot 69, though some of it occurred several years ago. But the wetlands are still completely intact, and they look to have natural hydrology. There's only a very small area of wetland filling. It was a spillover from the filling on lot 67. That's detailed there. I'm not giving you numbers, but it's all in the report. So, I guess I can say that 175 square feet of spillover filling in lot 69, 4.3 cubic yards. It was about 8 inches deep. And there was also soil disturbance of wetland soils where, the vegetation had been removed, the surface was disturbed, but there hadn't been any fill placed. Now, I forgot to mention probably the main function of the trenches was that it enabled us to accurately and easily measure fill depths, because this silt loam is a matrix with lots of bricks in it, and you can see as soon as the bricks stop, that's the bottom of the fill. So you can just measure from the bottom to the top. But you have to be careful that you don't measure to the top of the berm, that you measure to the top of the actual level of the ground past the berm. So that's what we did, and it was pretty consistent, at about a foot of fill across there. So initially, the initial letters that went by had thought it was more than that, but there are a couple of large fill piles still sitting there. I hope you will think about erosion control too. Although there's so much of the surface area is brick, so that it isn't soil and it doesn't generate sediment. The fine sediment in the Wilbraham the clay in the Wilbraham soils is pretty erosible. It's easily suspended by runoff and by rain. And while the trenches were there and all the irregularity of soil, the spoil berms, they've been serving to trap runoff, and especially the upper trenches, or deflect runoff so that it doesn't go into the wetlands. But after the trenches are backfilled and they have provided they're deteriorating now, they're caving in, they've provided the information that they can. There's going to be a need for covering exposed soil with hay and for a perimeter berm. And I would recommend, since these really, really fine soils just go right through silt fence, they go right through hay bales, I'd recommend a berm of composted wood chips. That's what, in my experience, is very effective at keeping really fine silt from getting into wetlands.
I've got hopefully a quick question. I think on lot number 57, you folks, this picture of 2020 shows quite a bit of grass, is what you said. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose to fill in the grass? Wait, here you go.
You're talking about the 60-foot section that was already existing? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe we filled it in, so that's where the wood piles are, right behind the shed.
There was a lot of fill put on that grass.
Well, in the picture, basically, this area right here is all grass, and then it kind of goes.
But you put fill here.
Right. Where the wood piles, it's still virgin. There's nothing there, and that was grass prior.
But there was more grass. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Stop. On that picture of 2020, there's a 67.6 in the corner. We're on the same picture.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you bring up the wood pile, which is on the December 8th photo. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you're saying that where the 67.6 is the same place where the wood pile is.
Correct. Yeah, there was no dirt put on that area at all. As he put like a landing towards the middle of the yard, yeah, it kind of grew out, but where the wood pile is undisturbed.
Commissioners, Carol?
Is the wood pile going to stay there, or you're going to move it?
No, I'm actually using the wood in my house to burn it, so I'm splitting it, and I'm gonna use it if it's okay to keep on going.
The picture doesn't really show the terrain difference, but your neighbor's still got trees on his property, and then yours is cleared. What's the elevation difference than what you have filled in and what he has? Is it a foot higher level?
I'm probably 3 feet lower than his yard.
So there is a
Yeah,
gradually
all the
taper.
water naturally pools in my yard from
both sides.
both sides of the property. But
Well, your neighbor's here tonight to help you
Yeah.
resolve this side.
yeah, well, that jet area that is kind of the disturbed side of his is where the decline is. Probably about 3 feet.
Debbie?
I think it's a little less than that.
Okay.
No questions?
There is topo.
Wait a minute. We're operating out of here, please, Sigmund. Jeff?
No questions.
Jimmy?
I just find it disturbing that this whole thing took place. That's really unfortunate. One fortunate thing is the materials that are there, at least they're not toxic. They're very inert. In fact, they have very little interaction with anything except that they're there. That's a good thing, actually. Yeah, it's a very, very complex issue that has been created due to unfortunate circumstances, and I would like to hear some discussion about the benefits and the ramifications of removing what's there. This material is not all that erosive, but I think you stated that what's underneath it is very erosive.
Well, the bricks themselves are not erosive, but the bricks are in a
Okay, the
matrix.
fines of the brick.
Bricks are in a matrix of silt loam, which is actually very similar to the underlying soil.
Yeah, no, it can be highly impermeable when it gets ground that
When it's-
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. I think removing it would be a difficult process to do without doing more harm than good. I don't know, I think that's something that needs to be considered. Can you do more harm than good by removing something that's not doing any harm, except that it's there? It's not going to change the hydrology. You've clearly defined that as something that percolates up from underneath. And the stuff that sits there without current percolation freezes. So that flowed into those areas where it's still fluid, it's still coming in because the ground temperature is below the freezing. I think it's a concern as to removing it causing more damage than leaving it, and that's where I sit at this point.
Well, Sigrun, for the record, can I say something? There are two things that you need to think about with regard to removal. There are the piles up close to the house that are still there, and there is the fill that's already been spread. So you need to consider those separately. The
You
piles.
also have to consider you're gonna bring more material in to be able to plant grass.
Yeah, and there's also, where the water table is deeper in the middle part of Lot 67, where you can see in the notes that I put into that trench data table, where the seepage level was low, where the water table is deeper, I think it's not going to be as mucky and difficult to remove. It would be really challenging to be removing material from the very wet lower end, less so from the middle part. But they might want to replace what they removed with better topsoil or something like that.
Well, that aspect I'm very ignorant on, so I leave that to people that have done that work. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, you began by saying you sort of wonder how it happened and that it's really unfortunate that it happened. As an afterthought, I put into the record this copy of the web survey, the online NRCS soils map, because it shows only a tiny sliver of wetland soil at the bottom of these two lots. And I actually looked up the, this was so overview, fast soils mapping, you know, not accurate, careful delineation. But the old New Haven Soil Survey book has almost the identical map. You know, but it was updated when this one came out. And clearly the appearance of this forest below Schoolhouse Road, which was existing, it looked like a moderately well-drained forest to the soil scientists that were there, and they mapped it that way. They took a couple cores, whatever. So I guess you can blame it on the, and these things are used for planning. You know, when the original developer was trying to decide whether to do the Wildwood subdivision, he would have pulled out this map and seen, well, how much upland soil is there near Schoolhouse Road? Oh, there's quite a lot. And that was wrong. And so I think that's why.
So you don't think the map that was used in this 78, I think it was, when they were built, was accurate, wasn't field tested?
No, the map that was used in 78 had the wetland line much higher up.
Well,
it was close to what my line was.
Well, that was, yeah, but that would have been an accurate
This
measurement.
was inaccurate.
This one's inaccurate.
This one is it's a large scale map.
Yeah, but it's inaccurate.
It's inaccurate.
Yeah, the 78 is accurate.
Yes, it was accurate.
Aaron, you got questions? Any comments here?
Well, for clarification for me, did the commission get the drone pictures?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
provided those. I had a guy come out and take a few pictures for me.
I read the report. I don't have many, I think Sigrid's done a lot of work. I think it reflects, you know, it's good work. And really, the commission has to decide what you want to do about it.
Well, do you think it should stay there?
Well, one thing is, I got a few calls, comments from people coming in saying they were afraid if the Wetland Commission lets the material, the brick stay there, it's going to increase flows to their property, and their property is already wet, and this and that. But from what was said before between Commissioner Heilman and Sigrid, apparently not. Apparently, it's not going to make anything more wet. The water that's here is not going anywhere because they cut all the trees down and put the bricks in there. It's not displacing anything. Apparently. It's apparently not being displaced or shunted to another property. I think you'd agree with that, Sigrid, right?
Yeah, the water table is going to rise on this property, but it's not going elsewhere.
Yeah. Sometimes with our violations, it is going somewhere else, but not in this case. So, so that's good, that part of it.
You know, that's the problem here. The problem is if this stays, then the neighbor might as well fill mine, and I might as well fill mine, and I might as well fill mine.
They already have.
I mean, this is a very contagious problem.
The problem is we reached out to try to do our due diligence, and we just got wrong information.
Well,
we didn't act on it in bad.
Yeah.
And all of the houses around us have already done this.
No, I don't think so.
They all
haven't
have
cut the tree.
pools, they all have backyards.
All right, we're not going to go there. Not going to go there. Because whether it's your house or my street, this is going to be setting a precedent of an issue. Fill a wetland, and it's going to be worse to clear it out than not clear it out.
It also needs to not be set as a precedent to use us as a scapegoat when we weren't given the correct information as well.
You say that, but it's your own fault that you got wrong information. If you were concerned about it being a wetland, why didn't you call the wetland department, not planning and zoning?
We spoke to Aaron, and Aaron is the one who told us there is no listed violation.
Okay, Aaron, it's your ballgame. You're the one who caused this problem.
This has already been addressed in meetings prior to.
I don't know if you're kidding or not.
She now says she talked to you, and you said there's no violation on this property, therefore there's no wetlands on this property.
Your exact
Last
words.
time
you
it
being
was planning and
facetious?
zoning you talked
Planning
to.
and zoning, and then it was referred to, but everything, whenever Aaron says that there's nothing listed, those were the exact words that we were given, and we've put that in the last meetings as well.
There's no,
It's been
yes,
addressed
I
that
say to
way.
everyone who asks, there are no wetland violations on a given property.
Well, did you
If
tell,
it's
did
true.
you tell these people that?
I may have told them that, because there are none. There weren't any, now there are, but there weren't. We have wetland applications on file, we have wetland violations on file.
So
That's
we were
all we
given a
have on file.
non-answer.
But the fact that there were no they didn't realize that the fact that there were no wetland violations didn't mean that there were no wetlands.
Yeah, but it was wet. They went out there, your feet get wet. There was ferns and frogs.
I could go in my front yard after a rainstorm and my feet are gonna get wet as well. So just to go out and say if your feet are squishy,
I
it's
think
wetlands, that's
if-
not helpful.
If I either need more staff to go out to all these sites, we get a lot of questions coming in, more staff, or to bite the bullet and have the money paid to do the whole town like some more other towns have done. They've mapped the entire town, so everybody knows where every square foot of wetland is. We could do that, or more staff to go out and walk everybody's private property when they call up and ask for the information. I don't do that. Occasionally I'll do it if I have some time. I will occasionally go out and take a spin and walk someone's property, occasionally. Usually I just do it in response to violation complaints or an application that comes in.
But you said there's no violation. If you thought there was concern, you wouldn't say you need to get a soil scientist? You need to get more
Oh, yeah,
information?
no, I always say that.
You told them the rest of it, what you
Well,
need
I
to
don't
tell?
remember this particular phone conversation. I get these, once a week I get a phone call like this.
Well,
And I say, if you really want to know, I said, we don't have, I go through the whole litany. Some more affluent towns, they map the entire town. I said, if you
All I
really
know-
want to know,
All I know is previous meetings, Wetlands Commission never came up. Planning and zoning. I called planning and zoning.
This is Matthew Lewis. I mean, I could definitely go back, and I've watched the meeting over and over again. I specifically said that before I bought my house, I had called the wetland department, and I got the exact answer that Aaron is saying. There's no history of violations. And then the discussion was, maybe we're not asking the right questions, but my question was, when I bought the property, are there wetlands on the property? Not if there was violations. I was never told, go hire a soil scientist so you could find out. And we've had this discussion. I mean, you could go back to the first meeting. It's exactly what I said. And I think anyone could, I'm sure people remember, you know.
The previous meeting, I even had said too, that it needs to be addressed, that if we need to get a soil scientist, that needs to be mentioned, because not everybody's gonna do it, but if you're gonna do your due diligence and you wanna have something done, then that's what needs to be done. But when you're not given the information, then how can we be faulted for that if we're not being given correct information, we're being given non-answers?
You surmised that there was wetlands on here, though. Or else you wouldn't have
We
called.
had moss.
You had moss.
Right.
I mean, you're on the edge of a fresh meadow swamp. I mean, you're all indications that you're surrounded by wetland, not surrounded. You border wetlands, you border the swamp. You suspected that there was a problem. Yes, you may have called and said, well, there's no violations. And really, ironically, there is. It just never was determined from the original builder.
Now, you need to remember too, this is Sigrid Gadwa for the record. We need to remember that there was advice from the contractor as well that was involved in this.
What was his advice?
I didn't hear it, but he went ahead and he did not recommend that they hire a soil scientist and get a permit. He just went ahead and filled, and he certainly knows what wetlands are.
He doesn't even know where the bricks came from. You ask him, where's the bricks coming from? I don't know.
He put them there.
He doesn't know where they came from. Some guy had them for free, he took them, so they dumped them there.
Yeah.
So
But that was contributing to the recommendation, the fact that the person who is in this field and fills lots of areas was not saying, don't fill until you have a soil scientist find out where the wetland boundary is, but just was perfectly willing to go ahead and fill. That's what happened. And he's much more knowledgeable about the differences between moist and...
Don't put words that what he is or what he isn't.
He's more
Okay?
experienced.
Well, ended a sentence earlier.
If I could just add something, I'm not sure if anybody's come out and looked at the property. Obviously, my property doesn't have the extent of, fill as St. Mike's. But if anyone was to come out before Mike's property was filled, they would, the average person would not say, this is a wetland. Now, would we say, okay, it's a low area and potentially there could be something? Yes, let's call. But as we stated, a Wilbraham soil drains fairly well. We were in my backyard and the far northwest corner, and me and Sigrun dug 30 inches, and we were squeezing the soil, and there was no saturation. But the colors of the soil were identified as wetlands, which shocked me, and she said, yeah, this is still a wetland. So now for you guys to say that, oh, you were intrigued to say it was a wetland, yeah, we were because it was a lower elevation, but it doesn't mean that the average person would know that this is a wetland. I was shocked when we dug that deep and Sigrun said, squeeze the soil, and there was no saturation. It almost made me think that the map was completely wrong from 1978 because I was like, there's no wetlands on my property. No, seriously.
Yeah, no, but the soil colors were absolutely crystal clear. And then,
One of the situations, different times of year, your soil might have been
Oh,
saturated.
yeah.
When you did.
Oh,
the
for sure.
wetland,
Yeah, for
so-
sure. Yeah, we learned that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite
we're
a
learning as
learning
we go.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
we're learning.
What's the commission's choice here? Take it all out, take half of it out, leave it all in, bring more in, topsoil, get an engineer or somebody to lay a plan out, what's staying, what's going. Those are some of the options. Debbie, thoughts?
I'd say get an engineer then, in to say what should go and what should stay. Get some more advice.
Jeff?
I agree with Debbie.
Jimmy?
I'm not sure exactly what specified engineer you'd want to look for.
Well,
Soils engineer,
I
a
think-
mechanical engineer, or what kind of an engineer? My concerns with it is the description that you just gave. Never thought this was a wetland soil. The Wilbraham isn't easily identified. You can go 10 feet from where a person is standing and it's Wilbraham. 10 feet over there, it isn't Wilbraham. It's pocketed, extremely pocketed. It makes an integration for a wetland, which has value, but it's nothing that you would recognize, and clearly, historically, we've seen here that it was generally not recognized. That's the tragedy of this. Now, you guys, especially Nick, would have a lot more knowledge than I have as to how carefully you could go in there and skim this off without doing damage. But then what would be the plans of doing after that? I mean, you're left with a mess, a real serious mess. I don't know what your future plans really were on this. I would assume to put a skim of soil on it so you could,
Topsoil for grass to have.
for grass.
Our kids to be able to play.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think it's just a real unfortunate situation, and I don't think it's something that would be used as a mimic. I mean, this is no fun. You're not having fun going through this. And so other ones would do this so you get away with
The
it. No, you're
financial
not getting
burden
away
of
with
this
anything.
is just extreme as well. And now we're talking about an engineer, and it's gonna be even more.
Yeah.
Well, you asked Jimmy, and I want to see some kind of map. What is intended here? So when it gets done, there's something to go by.
I
whether
think
it's an
that's
engineer,
vital.
whether it's but some kind of a specific map with points on it.
An overhead map of,
I want to see a map that says, we're going to fill to this line, we're going to grade this in, we're going to leave that alone, we're going to clean, take all this out, you know, something, a whole plan that says what you're going to do or what you want to do.
So we were at, Sigrun got it off the record, we were actually, I was going to do that, but I was told that what you wanted tonight was just to know what happened and wait for the next stage to figure out, to come up with a plan for how to restore it. So that would be the next stage. And I've actually been, worked on a team with other soil scientists often doing wetland mitigation design, which involves moving soil and adding soil and taking away soil. And, so I would feel qualified, maybe in cooperation with one of my colleagues to come up with this.
Before I say any more, Nick,
That sounds like a lot of money to me. You start getting other people involved. Right now, you got all the trees gone, so the sun's in there, it's drying. You got somewhat of a dry source. You've got spring coming, what's going to be the wettest spring we've had in a long time. You've got rain. The weatherman says it's not going to be snow, it's going to be rain all winter. It's going to be a soupy mess. I think what I'd like to see is no more comes in, but you dress it with topsoil to get the grass to grow. You talked about a swale. Where are you going to put the swale?
there's, on the garage side in the back, there's already a French drain underneath there, and I'd like to keep that as a swale. In the section on the 2020 pictures, you can see there, where the largest part of the grass is, there is a French drain that runs underneath down into the woods. But, I mean, obviously you can't see it, there's just a pipe that ends out.
Yeah, it drains the water from the backyard out into the
Yeah,
wetlands.
all the drains on the house gutters go down into there.
I think I agree with Jim that it's going to make a mess if you go in there and start scooping it out. Then you got to bring topsoil in to dress it, because the grass isn't going to grow on that crap. But it's got to be done at a certain time of the year when you're not going to be in there trashing around making a complete mess of it. And then Jim wants to see some type of mapping to what you've done, and that's the end of it. You'll stop there, and I don't know when you're going to be able to get the topsoil under the seed. It's the same thing with your property.
The grass probably won't grow till the spring, but I believe we could get topsoil in soon, and the wood chip berm around the boundary, if that helps with silting, I think we could take care of that sooner than later.
Want the wood chips?
wood chips, I don't have a problem with that. But you've got a lot of grading to do before you get topsoil.
Mostly right behind the house, because it's just a severe drop. We're looking, somewhere where somebody could walk off the porch to the backyard without falling. That's where the rest of the soil needs to be put in.
Does any,
I still think somebody has got to put on paper what the intentions are going to be. How simple it is, how complicated it is up to you.
I think it should be both of them, 67 and 69.
Oh, that's all, it's like one.
It's all
Mr. Chairman,
one, but
I just have a question. Does anyone know, anyone on the commission or here, how much soil you have to put on top of bricks so that the future grass does not totally die in August?
2 inches.
No.
Yeah, 2 inches.
2 inches?
2 inches over the bricks, so grass will grow perfect.
Except in dry weather,
Right. In dry weather, the grass is going to burn a little bit.
burn quickly.
But these bricks aren't exposed. The grass is going to grow good because the soil is going to be warm from the sun. As long as it's covered over.
And then what happens in August? Does it make it through? I mean, it lives, it goes brown, but then it lives and then springs back in October, gets green again.
It comes back.
2 inches.
Along with some crabgrass.
If you guys if you see your way clear to have them add topsoil, we got to quantify the amount of topsoil.
Well, Here we go again. This is what you've got to decide with them. You got to decide what you're going to put in there, what you're going to do, what your request is.
Well, because it does trip a wire with planning and zoning for a certain amount of
You know,
fill,
that's
brick,
their problem.
and
That's-
topsoil.
It's already tripped to planning and zoning.
No, I don't think so. Has it?
What, you don't think there's 1,000 yards there?
I don't know. Have you gotten a zoning violation yet? No, no.
How many yards are in there, Sigwin?
Let me add them up.
And what's the zoning requirement? What's the trip?
100 cubic yards.
100 cubic yards?
Yeah.
It's tripped. It's tripped.
And now they're going to bring in more topsoil. I'm just saying, they got to just,
So what's your suggestion?
Is there a permit that we can apply for in order to do that ahead of time with planning and zoning?
yes.
So that we can go over the 100 cubic yards, we can apply for the permit ahead of time and have it all passed?
100 cubic yards is their tripwire. Yes. The
But
reg-
we are able to apply for a permit ahead of time to have that much and the excessive with
Current-
planning and zoning?
Currently, you'd be in violation, zoning violation today. So then you would apply to, I don't know what they do with you. You'll have to meet with them. Because you want even more.
I think our contractor had already spoken to Amy about it, but I'm not sure.
Who's Amy?
The zoning enforcement officer
What it is here is
Oh, zoning enforcement.
in the planning
390
department.
on, and what's remaining is almost about 190.
So
390 cubic yards are already spread, 90.7 is in the pile waiting to be spread.
the pile of brick or dirt?
Combined, brick and dirt.
Okay, so that might, because of planning and zoning, et cetera, it might then, an understanding might happen that they can only do half their backyard with the mathematics. I don't know, they gotta talk to planning and zoning.
Aaron, as if this is a wetlands violation and this is a corrective action to this, to straighten it out, then why is planning and zoning getting involved? If we give them permission to topsoil the area to get the grass to grow, they don't need to, this is our recommendation for a violation. Why are you getting planning and zoning involved in this?
Well, as an administrator, I would be neglectful if I didn't mention this other regulatory issue that has arisen, meaning the planning and zoning fill regulation. They have a fill regulation because a lot of people want to fill their backyard. And what happens when people fill their backyard, the water goes usually to the neighbors. That's the biggest problem with altering the terrain. You fill your backyard, then the water goes to the neighbors. So it's something that's planning and zoning looks at very carefully. They don't just say, okay. No, they look at it. They look at the situation.
So we're gonna give them recommendations to level off the backyard, finish leveling it off and topsoil it. Planning and zoning is gonna tell us no for a wetlands violation?
No, I think in their case, the water isn't going to go to the neighbors, so that's good. You know, but after they're done, it won't go sideways. That's good. But they need to apply. There's a process. You go in front of planning and zoning. There's a heavy application fee that's associated with that.
It's great that you're telling us at the 11th hour. So what happens, they go to planning and zoning and they say no? They want it all to come out of the yard. So
Well, no,
why are they wasting their time here with us?
They should sit down with planning and zoning. Maybe they could keep half of it. You know, it would be more amenable to keep half, not all the fill, half of the fill.
I think we should just, as you were saying, you should notify them. It's our recommendation that they do X, Y, and Z, and see where that goes. I think it's better than just sitting here babbling about what we don't know.
Yes, but I just want these folks to know it's not over. That's all.
Oh, yeah, that's, I think they're well aware of that.
With that being said, they've got to get some kind of document together on what they want to do. So,
They made it through
You'll
us.
be back.
That's their next trip.
okay, motion that the violations all stay in effect?
Just to add quick, sorry. I mean, obviously, you know, I don't want to separate from my neighbors, but at the same time, our violation was for cutting down trees in the upland review area. We found some spillover from not knowing the property lines. I mean, where do we stand? Because obviously, we have piles of brick in our yard that we were gonna use to grade into our neighbor's yard. If we can't use them, we don't want them. I mean, you know, I think Sigrun stated that the taking down the trees in our yard didn't affect the wetlands, and, you know, it's kind of like, all right, so where do we stand, you know? Like, obviously, we want to continue with our backyard, and we know now where our line is and where our neighbor's line is. Obviously, we don't know to what extent he's going to keep, but do we keep our violation? I mean, I'm trying to,
Yep.
you know, it's
I agree.
two separate situations, so obviously, we'll be back, and we're going to have to apply, and we're going to have to, you know, to whatever we're going to do on our property, but.
And
Okay.
in the meanwhile, could there be short-term authorization to fill the trenches and put the erosion controls in?
You're gonna put erosion controls, you're gonna put the wood chips in and then go back and spread the brick?
They're not gonna spread more brick over the wetlands, they're
Well,
gonna
you
spread
guys-
the bricks in the upper area.
I don't have a problem with the
And just to fill the trenches, just
the,
'cause it's not
either
so
that.
safe.
Fill the
Fill
trenches
Trenches
and
with the spoils that are next to them.
wood chip, decomposed wood chip. I'm just not sure you want to get your contractor to bring the chips in. It might be a little rusty.
Mr. Chairman, I personally would recommend splitting it apart, 60, the
Look,
two
all right,
prop-
okay, 69, correct?
Right, that's,
69. Now, their violation is under control? Do they have to do anything for their violation?
we're entertaining both violations
All right,
at once.
what
But
about
it
their
doesn't
violation?
sound like 69 has to go to planning and zoning at all. They don't
That's
have to worry
correct.
about
What
that.
about their violation, which he indicated was cutting trees?
Well, they have a violation, but they can,
All right, so how are we going to correct that violation?
we can wait, they should bring in a proposal separate from this 67, their own little proposal. We're gonna plant trees over here, we're not gonna do anything over here, we're gonna get rid of the bricks over here. Very
Okay.
simple. They can do it. They don't need Sigrun to
Okay.
do it. Just
You-
one
you-
page.
If you sit with Aaron and say, look, this is what happened, what's your recommendation, what should we replant? And that will probably head you down the right path.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and, you know, I think if you look at,
Your fill volume of your brick piles is under 100, it's 90.7.
Sigwin,
Yeah.
please, let him speak.
yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, we want the job done right, and we want to, you know, whatever happens with our neighbors, we don't want to have, you know, bad grading, just like we've been talking about, where water goes, you know, wherever. So if you do look at my map in the top right corner, which is, I don't know, I'm not good with direction, but in the northern area before it's cleared, that is the low area. That is like the swale there. It's created a swale from them adding fill, so that will be a low spot. And that was the reason for bringing the brick, was to not have that collection of water which would create because they added fill. So, you know, obviously my proposal for my plan would be, can I fill that area so then the water drains as it should? So, you know, if my violation is removed, I would come to the table for the wetlands, depending on what happens with my neighbor, to try to do that plan.
I think it's got great possibility, but the thing to do is sit with Aaron and
Yeah, sure.
kind of get it together, all right? To make it simple for us to understand what you want to do. Okay? Violation?
What about filling in the trenches? Can they backfill the trenches?
What's that?
They've asked to fill in the trenches. Is that for safety reasons? Is that why?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause they don't want people breaking their
Yeah,
ankles.
fill the trenches in the chips. Yeah.
Wood chips in the trenches?
No,
Oh,
No.
sorry.
On the boundary.
she recommended chips for soil erosion control.
Right.
So chips for soil and erosion control and fill the trenches.
And Sigrun, for the record, I would also spread 2 or 3 hay bales over the area, just so that there's not so much runoff, silt-laden runoff going down the hill.
Which silt is coming off the brick? Why isn't it running in between the brick?
The bricks are, this is a matrix. There's only about maybe 40% brick, 60% silt. it's dirt with bricks in it.
If you want to put a couple of hay bales down, it's,
Yeah.
that's right. All right, we're voting on leaving all violations intact. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the violations on 67 Schoolhouse Road and 69 Schoolhouse Road remain in effect,
and all others.
and all others.
Okay, motion made, second.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Nick?
Yes.
Yes.
Debbie? Jeff?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay. All right, see you next month. Okay. Now, if we go back to, let me see here. Going back to 5 Research Parkway. Request for administration approval. Aaron, all right. What's going on Research Parkway?
Yes, the owner's here to represent, but this went out in your packet. The owner wanted he's requesting 2 separate administrative approvals. And I suggested he submit a site plan. Let me just back up. I had him split the two things for clarity, for administrative clarity. One is we have a 90-day, on condition number 1 for the permit we approved, I guess this summer, there was a 90-day period where that was the time frame for the permittee to get all the final revised documents into us. Site plan and all the technical documents and calculations in. And because planning and zoning's approval dragged on, and they are now wanting to change the 90 days to 180 days. I recommend that. There's no downside to that. So that was one thing they're asking for, and that's the first administrative request you see, and I had them apply, and that's the first one, which is, it's A22-12.5.
Commissioners, is there any problem with administration approval? Jeff, Jimmy? No? Carolyn?
You're going to stretch out 180 days?
Well, they have the ability to submit it within 180 days. Okay. Yes, give them administration approval.
Okay, so you grant that, and you're going to do that, and I will affect the paperwork.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, number 2?
Now, number 2 was because any time we had said this, with our original conditions of approval, any time planning and zoning is going to change anything, no matter how minor, the permittee had to come back to my office and say, look, this is what planning and zoning had us change. What are we going to do about it? And in this case, it tripped applying, which they have done for a minor plan change. This was all stipulated in our original approval. So they have done that. And what they're asking for, the minor plan change, and that's what's on the site plan that went out in the packet attached to this, is planning and zoning asked them to put islands in their employee parking area, islands, and then in those islands put bioretention swales, which will infiltrate. It's all good. If there's any over drainage, there's under drains under the parking lot that will take that drainage and into the large detention basin. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's all good. So I recommend approval of that, and we can do that administratively as well.
Approval. Commissioners, any disagreement with that? No? Grant administration approval.
Okay, great. So I
Now,
will.
I'm going to ask a question, though. What department did planning and zoning get that recommendation from? Where did they get that recommendation for the islands in the parking lot?
Maybe, I think I know, but I think Jeff might be able to answer that.
Jeff Checkaway with Calare Properties with 5 Research Parkway. Through the process, in working with town staff, Kevin Pagini, the town planner, and Allison Kapuscinski had recommended that we add the bioretention or depressed islands in the 3 long landscaped islands shown in the employee parking area. We obviously agreed it we figured it made a nice bonus feature to the already like robust stormwater system there. So we're going to include it, and we came for the administrative approval to do so.
I'm just curious how it wasn't requested when we submitted, when you were before wetlands, how that, and it went through the town departments, how it wasn't requested then or suggested then, that's all.
Yeah, I
Not
don't
a
think it
problem.
was a general requirement. I think we did it as an additional feature that, and we saw no need to disallow it. We thought it was a good idea as well.
Yeah, no problem. Well, it's got administration approval anyway, so you're all set?
Hold on, let me just make sure if other things came in, reports and communications. Okay, if anyone wants to sign up for that seminar, okay, just get in touch with me, or you can get your registration fee reimbursed. Excellent seminar on land use, put on by the Connecticut Bar Association for various land use law. Caroline might be interested in that. And that's that. And of course, we have the public hearing for February 1st. And that was rescheduled, so I will put out notification for that. It'll be renoticed, it'll be put in the paper again, and of course, the applicant has to remail all the notices out.
Okay. Anything else to come before us tonight? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion made, second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
It didn't make the agenda, which was last night.
Thought maybe you skipped out because you didn't want to be part of it.
Down, Tuesday night.